Married men of Reddit, what was that dumb thing you did during your dating phase that you can't believe your wife ended up overlooking? I didn't really do it, but I thought he would be weirded out anyways. Very first time he stayed at my house, after about 3 hours of my 2 male roommates trying to make him uncomfortable, we went to bed, and he put his contacts into shot glasses of water because he had no case with him. I don't know if that's a dumb thing to do. I've never worn them. Maybe we were drinking, and that seemed like a good idea. Anyways, he had never had a pet, and was kind of weirded out by my cat standing beside him, and meowing at him all night. Is that normal? Is he mad at me or something? Woke up the next day to find out the cat drank all the water from the shot glasses, contacts included. I had to help him home, because he is seriously blind without them. He still wanted to see me again, even though the night was weird, and the cat became his best friend, despite some initial skepticism on both their parts. Edit. I just asked him why we put his contacts in water, and he said it was contact solution from one of my roommates who had contacts, but no spare case for him to borrow, so we use the shot glasses. Makes so much more sense. And Chuki was fine after drinking the solution, though we did call the vet. Totally forgot that part. Well, it was 17 years ago. First date with my wife. End of the night I went to kiss her on the cheek, being all sweet and shit. She thought I was leaning in for a hug, and leaned in too. As she leaned in I turned my head, and instead of her cheek I kissed her neck. Turned super red, and embarrassed, then goodbye, and almost pushed her out of the door at my apartment. I immediately texted her sorry as well, and she laughed. 3 years into marriage she apparently didn't care. For our second date I had invited her out with myself and some friends to celebrate a friend getting a job. I drank heavily. She was my DD. She drove me home, and as she pulled up to the curb I threw open the door, rolled out of the car, and vomited into the gutter. She then offered to help me cross the street, to which I responded by yelling I'm disgusting and sprinting across the street. Once inside, I brushed my teeth aggressively. She asked what I was doing, and I told her I needed to clean my mouth so I could kiss her. After I was done, I walked to my room, laid down, and immediately fell asleep. She spent the night to make sure I was okay. I'm now holding our baby girl who was born just last week. I asked her at one point why she stayed with me through that, and she said it was because even though I was pissed drunk, the whole time I was still gentle and kind. Asked her if she was having fun, and introduced her to everyone I knew. I'm a lucky guy. Edit. Till that brushing your teeth after vomiting is bad. We met our first day of high school, so there are many. My least, her family's, favorite is when I left her messages. This was before cell phones and her parents owned a business. They set their voicemail in a business manner, in that you dial 1 for father, 2 for mother, and so on. I found out later it was practice for their office line, and that this line went to the same recording, no matter what. I left so many messages of call me ramblings. They were on vacation. Her 4 siblings and her parents listened to it all on speaker, in a van. We kept it secret for years, until we didn't. It's never stopped. In college I got a pretty severe bronchial infection. I had a fever of 103 and felt pretty useless. My boyfriend, now husband of 12 years, says he is going to go rent some movies from Blockbuster and come back, so we can just chill for the weekend while I'm resting. Blockbuster was a 5-minute drive from our apartment. An hour goes by, and he's not back. I call his cell phone and he doesn't answer. Another hour goes by, and I call again, no answer. 2 more hours go by, I'm blowing up his cell phone, and terrified that he got in an accident, and I have no way of going out to look for him. An hour later, 5 hours after he left, he calls me, and says he's on his way home. He went to a friend's house, to help him rebuild the engine in his car. It took a long time for me to not be pissed at him, and I still get mad thinking about it. Transitioning from that uncomfortable to the comfortable phase. I was sitting across the room while she did homework. I farted pretty loudly, and she looked me in the eyes and fired back. Luckily I had another in the chamber, and asserted my dominance, to my surprise, which she matched for a second time, but even louder. Having this all happen in a span of 2 seconds and thinking it was pretty funny, I tried to top her by forcing one more out to reign supreme. Well, let's just say it wasn't a fart I forced out. One of her favorite stories to tell close friends and family. We've been married for going on 4 years though, so I'll guess it all worked out for me. TLDR, shit yourself in front of potential mates if you wanna get married. It was our first date and first time ever meeting. Tinder. I told her beforehand that I'm so excited to meet her and that I won't stop hugging her for anything once we're together in person. Fast forward to when we first meet in the parking lot of a haunted house and I stay true to my word. Too true. She tried breaking away from the hug and I said nope. We are gonna walk to the door of the haunted house while still hugging. After about 4 steps of trying to walk/hug, I accidentally trip her and she falls right to the ground. This was all within our first 30 seconds or so of meeting in person. We've been married 1 year as of this month. I made myself a burger for dinner before heading over to her place to hang out. Unfortunately I'm not the best cook and left a little too much pink in that burger. While we were at her house I bet her I could fit through the doggy door and crawled right through. Then she immediately closed it behind me and we raced to the front door. She won and she locked it. Now at this exact moment my bowels decided they had enough of that burger from earlier and I felt my stomach cramp. Luckily I held it all in and ran back to the back door with my cheeks clenched and starting knocking desperately in the door. She was laughing at first, but when she saw my face go suddenly serious and I said very calmly I need you to open the door. Now please. She unlocked the door and asked if I was okay. I told her to stay downstairs and turn the TV up loud. She agreed but was very confused. So I ran upstairs and then had one of the most violent shits of my whole life. I thought the worst was behind me until I went to wipe. And of course no TP. So she took my instructions really well, and when I yelled to her, texted her, and called her I got no answer. After probably like 10 missed calls she finally answered, and I asked her to bring me some TP and leave outside the door, and try not to breathe on the way upstairs. She was great about it, and immediately started making fun of me when I came back downstairs. Now quite a few years later, a couple kids and cat, she's still making fun of me. Child adult here. My parents were getting pretty close to the engagement step when my mom broke her foot. My dad's friends were having a house party, and even though my mom was tired, limited, and in pain, she agreed to go with him on the condition they'd leave when she wanted, and that my dad would keep himself sober enough to drive back. Well, dad got too into the party, drank more than he should have, and brushed off my mom's first request to leave. Mom had to tell him she'd drive herself home and leave him there unless he pulled himself away from his friends and left with her. Dad finally said his goodbyes, but he was proper sloshed, so they had to wait a bit longer so my dad could drink water and hopefully sober up enough. Nope. Mom had to drive the both of them home. Dad slept/passed out on the couch that night, and my mom was pretty much ready to dump him. Somehow, they worked things out, and they got married a few months later. My mom hasn't totally gotten over it, but she's overlooked it enough to only bring up her box rage whenever my dad tells the I'm so lucky she married me after that story. I guess this story gets an asterisk since we are divorced, but we worked together and had hooked up a few times, but were not a couple yet. One night, she wanted to come over after we got off, but I have vague reasons why tonight wasn't a good time. The real reason was my apartment was disgusting, and I was aware enough of it to not want her to see it, but too lazy to do anything about it. She had been pursuing me pretty aggressively, and that night was no different. She showed up at my place about 10 minutes after I did. I answered the door, but only opened it enough to stick my head out. I refused to let her in, and after a minute or two stepped outside to continue taking to her. She basically kept telling me she was there for sex with no strings, and I finally admitted that I was ashamed of my pigsty. We ended up having sex in her car in the parking lot. The postscript is that now, 18 years later, I'm pretty much a neat freak, except for floors. I don't vacuum half as much as I should, and now can have company over with no notice. Getting absolutely trashed at her best friend's wedding, puking in her parents' car in the way back to the hotel, and taking care of my dumbus when my blood sugar went low, hovered around 60 and 80 for a while, due to all the alcohol. I'm diabetic and she more or less nursed me back to good blood sugar levels. Once my sugar was good she put me in bed, and I was miserable the next day and a half. I don't drink anymore. Also on a bit of a lighter one, the day I proposed to her I did it during one of my band's shows on stage. We planned this for weeks. And to get ready for the show maybe a week out with 1 or 2 rehearsals left I had to skip her birthday that year to do to this. We had it all set then changed the song we were going to play after her last minute, so I had to cancel seeing her. She wasn't happy at all. Even day of she was still a bit agitated. Come day of, and I'm on stage, and in a fit of nervousness during the moment, when I went to go grab the ring I whacked her on the head accidentally with my bass headstock. I immediately turned around and kissed her head. So if you watch our proposal you hear me talking before getting her in stage, me accidentally hitting her with my bass and her yelling ouch. She said yes, for some reason, and we played Dancing in the Moonlight by Thin Lizzy in dedication to her and our relationship. I think I made up for missing her birthday that year.